This episode of Podcast Portugal is brought to you by expatsportugal.com, your trusted online community for everything related to moving to, living in, or investing in Portugal. What really sets Expats Portugal apart is its welcoming, knowledgeable community. Whether you're just starting to explore the idea of life in Portugal or you're already settling in, you'll find live webinars, expert Q&As, member discounts, a vibrant forum, and friendly in-person meetups happening across the country. And just for Podcast Portugal listeners, you can get 15% off membership by using the code Podcast Portugal at checkout. That's Podcast Portugal, all one word and in caps. Visit expatsportugal.com today and start your Portugal journey with the support of people who've been there, done that, and are ready to help you do it too. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. I'm very excited today and extend a really warm welcome to veteran, entrepreneur, and co-founder of NovaScale Partners, Steven Eugene Kuhn. He's turned military precision into a powerhouse formula for business growth. He's raised over $700 million in capital, generated over deals across 10 countries, and the co-founder of Kuhn Growth Club, alongside his wife, Olga. He brings a battle-tested, no-nonsense strategy for scaling businesses, securing funding, and preparing for premium exits. Today, in Podcast Portugal, we're going to talk in more general terms about the current climate, the current global climate we are facing. Steven, you are a medaled veteran. My personal thoughts on war: I admire the service and sacrifice of the men and women of the armed forces, but I can't help but be very saddened that sometimes these heroic lives are being sacrificed for reasons that are not always transparent. I'm also really uncomfortable with the ability of power structures that can convince populations of men and women and soldiers to commit the ultimate self-sacrifice. How do we balance national pride, service, patriotism with free thinking? And can you tell us a little bit more in the context of your own personal experiences, like the nerve gas attacks that you faced in Iraq and the erased orders?
Well, that's a bunch of questions.
Always.
If you want me to start with, when you're young, you are quite impressionable. So, and when I was younger, it was all about America goes to war to save the world. America goes to war in order to bring democracy to the rest of the world. So I believed that, and I was all in. I couldn't wait to join the military. When I was a kid, I was playing soldier since I was like 7 years old, and I joined in a delayed entry program where I trained before I was even able to go, just so I could be ready. And I went, and I loved it. It pushed me to limits I'd never been pushed to before. It helped me break through and become a person that I never thought I could be. It took care of my self-confidence issues. It was incredible. It really was. And then I got sent to war, and everything we trained for didn't mean anything because it was completely different than what we trained for. And nothing happened the way they said it would happen. And we ended up doing things that I didn't agree with, and we weren't allowed to do things or weren't permitted to do things that we should have done. And that's where everything turned for me. I knew, after the ceasefire in Iraq, after the battle, I was in the Battle of 73 Easting, which is the largest tank battle since the Second World War at the time. After that, I saw things that no one should see and experienced things that no one should experience. And look, I'm a 6'4" guy, 115 kilos or 250, whatever that is in pounds, 193. So I'm a big guy. When I talk like this, people people sometimes say, "Oh, you're a pacifist," or this. Well, look, I've been to war as a soldier who wanted to go to war, who was dying to prove himself. And then I almost died doing it. I lost a friend in my arms, needlessly, in a war that was, at the time, justified, according to the press. And of course, we know later it wasn't. So how do you start to think free like that? First of all, you have to break free of, the loops that you're in. So we get put in loops in our life through press, through media, through indoctrination in school, things that we're supposed to believe and that we just take for granted that they are like that. And breaking out of that is really difficult because it means you're walking into uncharted territory. But the good thing is when you do that, you sort of send out a signal of untamed coherence, and then you start burning the fog away, and then you start unlocking the knowing of what's actually going on. And then you meet people, but you attract people at that frequency that you're at suddenly. And I started attracting people in my life from all walks of life, and in very high positions, and royals and politicians and strategists, very, very high-end business owners and leaders. And it was because I was at a frequency where they felt they could be themselves and they could be honest. So that back and forth, as far as I allow you to ask me and to dive deep into my soul, is as far as you'll allow me. It's like the yin and the yang, or as above, so below, like it is in the Kabbalion. So these are all things that I've learned over the years. Now I had to crash and burn to do that. In 2008, I was 2007, very successful. I was running a corporation, had a couple cocktail bars and a nightclub in Berlin, Germany. I had written a bestseller. I was doing some movies. I was an MTV VJ, guest VJ. I was a newscaster sometimes. And then I lost everything, like overnight almost. The 2008 crash. My main finances were based on a business we had in the States, which was in the mortgage industry. And as most people know, that's what crashed. So overnight, I was basically homeless. And then I had a attempted suicide and ended up leaving society and going into a monastery in the mountains of Austria.
Wow.
For about 8 months, where I disappeared and didn't tell anybody where I was. And in that process of those 8 months, I went from being someone seeking help and seeking assistance and seeking a way to someone who is his own help, his own way, and his own assistance. And when I came back to Berlin, this was the wake-up call for me. I realized that no one even noticed I was missing. Now, you remember I told you all those things I did, so I was quite well known in Berlin. And when I came back after 8 months, no one even realized I was missing, that I had gone. So it just shows you how important we are in life. And my favorite saying is, without me in my world doesn't exist. So who's the most important person? And that's me. And that also means being true to yourself, being honest to yourself, being 100% authentic, regardless of what the feedback is from the world around you.
That's so powerful. Really, what an opening. At Podcast Portugal, that's one of our goals is, we really try to concentrate and focus on freedom of speech and long course discourse so that we really get to understand the person that we're interviewing and also the speech. In today's global climate, how do we ascertain truth and why is this so important? I've heard you talk about the six steps for reading the press and seeing through the noise. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, it's all, like I said, again, it's all loop, right? It's all a loop. It's all programming. And if we look at the way that we're told to act, to be, to understand, and to see, I'll just give you an example. So if you look at what happened recently, where Trump was being pressured by Netanyahu to join the war, and he couldn't just say no, because that would look like he was going against the international community, against Israel. And of course, as you know, in America, everyone's pro-Israel. So what happened was there was a meeting in the White House, and this is something that nobody knows, and I probably shouldn't be saying.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say it anyway. And there was a meeting in the White House with Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon is the diehard MAGA guy who was one of the founders of MAGA. And they came up with the idea to create a distraction and to make it look like the base, the foundation of MAGA is against boots on the ground and going hard. So Trump could go back in the public eye and say, look, I have to hold off. I can't rush into this because my basis, they don't want it. We have to listen to the people. And there's a lot of people that say, well, no, those were the people that aren't true MAGA, and they were the ones that we have to watch out for. And so there was a two-pronged approach to that. And that'll just give you an idea of what reality is and what we're told reality is. And when you understand that, if you look at a message from the press and you read that message, Netanyahu said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. Why would he say that? And if you look at the reason for going into Iraq back in the day was weapons of mass destruction. But most people don't know the real story, because we went in there and what happened? We didn't find anything. And why didn't we find anything? Well, I'll tell you why. And, a lot of this stuff is in my Patreon channel, if people want to join it. I can't talk about this openly. I hope I can do it here.
Yeah, you can do it here for sure.
Okay, so this is what happened. Saddam Hussein had nerve gas, and that nerve gas he used on the Kurds in northern Iraq. When that happened, there was outrage internationally, and the Americans were pressuring him to stop and, don't be such a dictator. And he threatened America and said, look, if you don't stop pressuring me, I'm going to tell the world where I got this gas, where I got this nerve gas. Yeah. It was American nerve gas. Because remember, we supported and fitted out Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War. Mm-hmm. So he had American-made chemical weapons that he used against the Kurds and threatened to tell the world that it was American-made. So Netanyahu wanted us to go to war. America didn't want to go to war. So what does Netanyahu do? He forces his hand and says, hey, those weapons of mass destruction, we got to take them out. Now America has to act. Why does America have to act? Because they have to get there before anyone else to make sure that they get rid of the WMDs that have American labels on them. Hence, we didn't find anything. That's why we went to war. If you think about that, so these are all the things that you don't know. If you take everything at face value, I can promise you this, anything you hear in the news at face value, it's meant to guide you down a path so that you support the narrative that they are currently running.
Yeah.
And when I talk, I get trust almost instantly because I'm not trying to persuade anybody.
Yep.
Right. I'm just resonating what the message is that I see out there. And a lot of people that I meet, they feel recognized, like, oh my gosh, like this guy can hear me. And I'm not analyzing them either. So they feel recognized and not analyzed. And I'm not speaking from like data or dogma. It's almost like a direct access to the universal data bank of knowledge, I guess you could say. And there's, like I said, there's a frequency to everything. Everyone feels it wherever they go. There's a frequency. You go to your mom's house, you feel different than you go to your dad's house, or you go to if they're separated, or if you go to your friends, or you go to school or to work, different frequencies, and you feel it all the time. So every part of us is a layer, right? Our habits, our fears, our gifts, and they spiral around us like echo chambers. So we're always hearing and seeing what we're used to hearing and seeing. But there's one sort of spiral that isn't made of reaction and trauma or language, and it's made of memory before time. So basically, that's the real us. The similar core across all of our incarnations, relationships, and breakdowns. The same way, like fractal expands from a single equation, our highest self will multiply from a single intention. And intention is the only thing that we can control in this world. We can't control the outcome. We can't control what's coming to us. So all we can control is how we deal with that and our intention. And my intention is add value, solve problems. That's my one intention in life. And it's elevating others to a higher frequency through that intention.
I mean, what you say resonates with me. It seems to just be very clear. For me, and for some people, possibly, hopefully the majority, it seems very obvious. If you scan through comments on Instagram, you're always going to see this or that, for or against. There never seems to be much room for nuance, and I don't know whether it's from my upbringing. I actually went to an American school in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
So I could see it changing, I'm 52, so I could see it changing back then in the 80s. We every time we went on the bus, we were getting scanned for bombs and everything, the security was pretty tight because the school was on the American embassy. And we actually my parents left Saudi Arabia because we had a Scud missile land on the airbase. We lived literally next to the airbase. the U.S. Air Base. So
When was this?
this was 1989, I think it was. I can't actually remember the exact date. But it's pretty much when Saddam Hussein literally
Right.
went into Kuwait. And it was a life-changing experience for me because that meant I left home from what my home was, and we moved back to the UK. And and later on in life, I actually went back and worked in Saudi Arabia. And you're talking about this narrative and this truth. This was the time, we were Tony Blair at the time and Bush all talking about weapons of mass destruction. And I was living in Saudi Arabia at the time. And I traveled to the south. Now, the south, some of the villages in the south are supposed to be hotbeds for Al-Qaeda.
Right.
And I would walk through some of these villages and the guys would come out, shake my hand. Where are you from? I'm from the UK. Please join us for dinner.
Right.
And if we just think about that for a minute, like that is not what is supposed to be happening in these villages in the southern areas of Saudi
the
Arabia.
narrative. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Flow Sports and Flow Grappling, the streaming platform dedicated for fans of grappling, rugby, basketball, volleyball, swimming, cycling, and much more. If you're into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'll want to head straight to Flow Grappling. They stream all the major events, IBJJF, ADCC, WNO, and the Pan Ams. And yes, even the IBJJF European Masters, where you could have watched me win gold. Tap the link in the show notes or go to podcastportugal.com to subscribe and get access to all the action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely crazy.
Well, it's, and I guess that's because you were resonating with them, right? You were just there. You were present, and being present creates presence, and a presence is what people feel. And you, like, everyone carries an unshaped frequency. It's like an archetype that predates any role that we're playing.
Yeah.
And if we can tap into that, we can associate with anyone around us, and people at levels, people at all levels feel that like it's home.
Yeah.
Almost like permission to be seen beyond their masks. So they allow you in, and that goes at any level. And that's why, like when I was in Berlin one time, Bill Clinton was in the hotel and I walked up to him and said, "Hey, Bill Clinton." I said, "William Jefferson Clinton, how you doing? How are you enjoying Berlin?" And because I used his full name, right, William Jefferson Clinton, I wasn't a fanboy, and I wasn't a fan, and I wasn't some official guy. I was just someone who used his full name to break through the code. And we spoke for about 30 minutes, and everyone was asking, like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I was just a bartender at the time, a bar owner, Yeah.
And actually, I heard you did something with Mick Jagger as well, the same thing.
Yeah, I did. I did the same thing with Mick Jagger, Andrea Bocelli, Olivia Newton-John, and I worked for all of them as well. So, it was always effortless because I didn't have a specific outcome in mind. Look, it's about having certainty in your abilities. Certainty in your abilities to deploy your genius and your talent in any given situation. That's what carries me through every day. I don't care if a SWAT team breaks in here right now, or a hurricane comes through, or the window blows out. I know I can deal with it. Having that certainty in life allows you to step up to any situation and deal with it, especially when you carry that an archetype that predates any role that you ever had, or any role that you've ever been placed into, or that you think you have to be. And if you can tap into that, you're basically the strongest person that anyone will ever meet. And it sounds, I'm only coming out with this now. I've never came out with this sort of detail because it's really hard to decode, because for me it's all intrinsic. And so like I met this guy. I was on a river cruise in Berlin, Germany, with a friend of mine who was visiting. I wanted to show him Berlin from the river. And I see this guy sitting in the sun on the top of the boat in a pink shirt, sweating profusely. His whole upper body was soaking wet. His shirt was soaked all the way through. He's sitting in the sun reading a newspaper. And I walked by and I saw beside him was a book. And that book was my book that he was reading. And, he wasn't reading at the time. I was sitting beside him. So I said, "Hey, you look like you're pretty hot, sweltering. Would you like a beer?" And he said, "Oh, I'd love a beer. Thank you so much." So I got him a beer, came back, sat down next to him. I said, "How are you enjoying that book?" And he said, "Oh, did you know it?" I said, "Yeah, it's me."
Excellent.
And it turns out this guy is one of the top strategists in the world for politics. This was 2002, 2003. We became instant friends. We talked every day for, I don't know, a couple of years. We met almost every single day for lunch. And then we started an organization. And that organization became the largest non-party political organization in Germany. And then that became the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. So all the way through, I built this organization. It was a pressure group. Then it was almost like a Bürgerbewegung, what's the word in English? A citizens movement. Mm-hmm. And then we basically took over the AfD, which had just been founded and was failing, and we turned it into what it is today. All because I offered a guy a beer. You see what I mean? I had empathy for the guy.
Yeah.
I saw where he was. I saw that he was in a role that he wasn't comfortable in, and I allowed him to be himself and to let go. Now, did I know I was doing that at the time? No, I didn't. I know that now, and I still do it, and I do it for other people. I don't do it for my own advantage because there is no advantage to that. The only advantage is to the person that I'm allowing to let go. And that's why my wife always asks me, how do you talk to anybody and everybody? It's like they've known you forever. We were in Dubai. We just got back yesterday or last night or the night before last. And I was meeting two Emiratis that I know there, pretty high up guys. And they said, hey, let's meet this cafe. So we go to this cafe. And they come in with this third guy who I never saw before. But he said, hey, Steven, great to see you. And I was like, okay, I guess I met him before. And he's talking to me, and and I said, look, I'm sorry. I don't remember where I met you. He said, oh, we've never met. I said, oh, but you're talking to me like you know me. He goes, yeah, I've watched every single one of your videos.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, why? He said, because when they said they wanted to introduce you to me, I wanted to know who you were. And judging from who you are in your videos, the videos with your wife, and now your wife sitting beside you, you're someone I know without a shadow of a doubt that I can absolutely trust with anything. So let's talk. And this guy told me things that right now I'm not prepared to repeat, in part about what's going on, what happened, who's in power, who did what, blew my mind. And these two friends of mine who were very high up were almost serving him, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And then he said, okay, we got some projects I'd like to, because, what I do, I fund companies. So we funded about $3 billion worth of projects in the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. A partner and myself. My partner lives in Abu Dhabi. And he said, we have some projects we'd like to talk about. And he said, come outside with me. And there was a car outside, and it was a Tesla. And it was a carbon fiber Tesla. The whole thing was carbon fiber. Probably the ugliest car I ever saw, but it was pretty cool. And this guy gets out. He goes, this is Prince so-and-so from Abu Dhabi. And he said, hello, Steven. Hello, Olga, to my wife. He already knew who we were. And gave us a few things about what they wanted to do in Africa and in Abu Dhabi. And he said, we'll talk, speak with this man here, and we'll take care of it. And all of that happened because in my videos, I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not taking sides. I have an opinion, which is mine, and everyone can have their own opinion. And all of that happened. I attracted that into my life because of my resonance and my frequency. And so people always are out there trying to do something to get something. They're trying to say this to get that reaction. They're trying to do this to make that money. But if you stay true to who you are and allow yourself, look, you don't need to become anyone. You already are. It's just that person inside of you is covered up with uniforms, with dogmas, with masks, with actions, character traits, all these things that we're trained into. If we can peel those away, we become the true version of ourselves. Just imagine you don't need to become anybody. You just need to let go of what's blocking yourself. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. So you believe like in humans innately are good or open, yes, and believe a lot on family and community in the small sort of area of their influence.
Yes.
100%. And so what happens to these nefarious characters that seem to want to control everything, and they take it to the level where they're power broking on a huge scale? They're able to, use pharmaceuticals to poison many people, and is it just something that they just distance themselves from mentally, and they just don't see the reactions, or is there sort of a innate trait to their psychology that just distances themselves from that innate true person that you're talking about?
Well, they aren't in charge, first of all, so they're following orders. And most, if you look at, like, for instance, many of the European leaders don't have children. And a lot of these executives don't have children, and that's because someone with children thinks about future, and they're not selfish about themselves. So a lot of these people that are chosen because they're selfish, and they're easy to manipulate because it's all about them. So you offer them wealth and influence. Look, I don't know if you saw that episode that I did, but I was approached to be a senator in America when I was living in Switzerland. And a senator in Illinois, and I'm a Republican, and they wanted a Democrat, and I said, I'm conservative, and they said, doesn't matter. And I said, what do you mean? They said, you're a poster boy. You're a war veteran. You're big. You're good looking. You've never been indicted, which I thought was funny. Yeah. You've never been indicted, and you have a Bronze Star from the war, and you actually fought. You weren't just there taking part. So you would be the perfect poster boy for the Democratic Party as a conservative-looking man. And I went along with it for a while because I was like, wow, is this real? And it was real. I spoke to some people on Skype that everyone would know. Can't mention their names, and I won't, no matter how many people try to call me out. And they basically were going to give me a job, just a title in the UN or in UNESCO, so that I would have a track record of working in some government agency, because I had been gone for, at that time, 20 years from the States. And then I turned them down. And the only reason they approached me is because of what I did with this organization in Germany and how we grew it into the AFD. And when I turned them down, they said, you are the dumbest and bravest person ever. We're going to mess with you for the rest of your life, basically. Nice. You'll never be anything. All right, you'll never be anything. And bravest because no one turns us down. Nobody turns us down. This is a dream. You'd be a senator, one of 100 senators. You'd be famous. Everyone would know who you are. You'd have a great life. And I said, I'd be the first senator ever to be assassinated because I can't keep my mouth shut, as you can see on this call right now. Yeah. So, I turned him down, and then about 2 weeks gone by, and I said, let me go talk to this guy. So I go to his house, because I had been to his house. He came to my wedding, like him and his wife. His wife was like the CEO at Pfizer Switzerland, all this kind of stuff. And they weren't there. House was empty. So I called. Phone was cut off. His son, who lived in Hamburg, Germany, was a Marine veteran. His phone was gone. It was disconnected. I started doing a search for them. Couldn't find them. I had pictures from the wedding with them. Did a reverse search. Had like people searching for me, private detectives and people in agencies that I know. No one could find them. They just disappeared, just gone, just like that. Called Pfizer. She never existed there. So, and it was like, that scared the shit out of me after that happened, because I said, oh my God, this is what people talk about. This is 2012. Yeah. This is what people talk about in the movies and, the deep state and all this kind of stuff. And at the time, deep state wasn't even a word, I don't think. And, that I attracted all of these things into my life. And the CIA approached me, and I was in interviews. And back when I was in the military, the CIA approached me. I got out of the military in Berlin, Germany, specifically to work for the CIA. And they dropped me before I even started, and I couldn't figure out why until 2 years later when I cornered one of the guys in a restaurant that I happened to see there. And so I'm attracting all these things into my life because the good that you are has to be controlled. And the powers to be don't want good people. They don't want people that see the truth. They don't want people, and truth, I know people don't like that word. It's my truth, but it's the truth that I understand through my experiences and the information that I have. And so the powers to be, whoever they are, and there's much speculation about who that is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Who do you think the power brokers really are?
There was a guy that I knew in Berlin. He was from South Africa. He was a German South African, and he was friends with a CEO woman that I knew who worked for Deutsche Bank in South Africa as a relationship manager, which means she just goes to parties. And she became the CEO of a company that I was working for as a contractor. And she introduced me to him. And I met him. He said, "Come to my office." And he was the head of German NASA,
Okay.
right? And so I went to his office, and he said, "We have 7 minutes." I said, 7 minutes? He goes, "Yeah, I have an appointment every 10 minutes, and I take a 3-minute break." I'm like, "Okay." So literally, the woman came in with 2 espressos. We sat and we talked for a couple minutes. And then he invited me to an event. So I went to this event and we were talking. And I said, "Dude, what do you do? Like, you don't really know what you're doing, do you? Like, you're not a scientist or anything." He goes, "No, this is a position that I have because of my connections and my family that I'm in." And again, he's telling me this stuff. And I asked myself, why is this guy telling me? He doesn't know me from Jack, but people trust me. So he said, there's 7 families, at least in Europe, that run everything. And they have a meeting every year, you know, and he's part of that. His family is part of
Okay.
that. He didn't go into detail, but that's what he told me. And he said, and they decide with other groups exactly what's happening and what will be done and where we're going to go. And this is just he was like a frat boy,
Mm.
like a college kid, basically, a little bit older. Had some great wine, but besides that, he didn't really know much and didn't really do much. Sort of like Macron. Macron never did anything. This dude was just he was a plant. He got a title in that bank that he was working in. Never did anything. All of his colleagues are like, "How's this guy even here? Doesn't know what he's doing." And then the next thing you know, he gets promoted, and the next thing you know, he's a prime minister.
Yeah.
These are all people that are programmed and trained, and then you look at the World Economic Forum and their young leadership program that they have. They put people through, and they train them to be that way. So it's a whole movement. So all of these people that are poisoning people, and for instance, Pfizer it was Peru. Peru couldn't afford the vaccine, so they said, "Okay, give us your military bases, and we'll give you the vaccine."
Oh, no way. Yeah.
And you ask yourself, why would a pharmaceutical company want the military bases?
Yeah.
So there's so much out there that I could talk about that no one even would believe. I mean, I was invited in to many circles, put it that way, circles that people think don't exist, but they do, and circles that exist, but no one knows where they are. I've been invited to these things. I've been interviewed by these people. I've spoken to these people. Most of them kicked me out after about 5 minutes. So, and I'm not kidding. Like, they were, "Okay, you can leave now."
Yeah.
Because I wasn't at their frequency. So they see something that they see someone with some kind of influence that's intrinsic, but they're not sure how to play it. So they invite you in to talk to you. And then when they realize you're not one of them and you can't be, and you
You're
won't
not going to
be,
play ball.
yeah, they just let you go immediately. They just drop you like nothing. It's hardcore. And people listening to this might be like, "Who's this guy? He's talking shit. He's full of it, blah, blah, blah." Whatever, believe it or not, believe it, don't believe it, care, don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't even know why I'm saying it. Tell you the truth. My intuition's telling me to come out with it now.
Well, I think
And
the
that's what
important thing that you're doing is it's like, turn the switch on people. It's not about left and right. It's the gray area in between, right? We have to be assessing everything, opening our hearts to it. And you've talked a lot. You run training programs and give
yeah.
excellent advice, and it's you have the ability to break down your knowledge of your pre-knowledge and the walls that probably surround you, and to try to absorb more information and learn the character traits you're talking about, to open yourself up to be able to balance both sides of the argument, and to make your own opinion. But really, how important do you think having our own opinion is in this anymore? I mean, do you think a democratic vote is even something that works when you have politicians that you vote for that then do something completely different, or they don't do what they were voted for in the first place?
It's all, people have to have hope that they actually have control over something, right?
So is it just that? It's just, do you think
Yeah.
democracy is just about hope and making you feel like you can do something? I mean, I've always believed that if you really want to sort of make change, you just literally work to your family. And once you've got to a financial position where you can look further than just your family, and you start to look after friends and then neighbors, and then possibly your local council, and you can
Ripple
start
effect.
there, and then that bounces off other people that are doing the same thing, and then you create associations with them. I think that's
Ripple effect.
exactly, ripples of change.
You have
I
to
think it's a beautiful
you have to
concept.
get your world in order,
Mhm.
When your world's in order, the rest of the world's in order because it doesn't bother you anymore because you have your world in order. So you can let go of all of the manipulation, and because that's all it is. It's a show. It's a TV show. It's a movie. It's an act. And now, don't get me wrong. There are bad forces out there, and there are good forces out there, and some good forces have to go a little bit on the wire, so to say, in order to get to a position or a place to try to do good. Problem with that is once you're in politics, there's no way you're going to get out of it because of all of the blackmail.
Yeah.
Like RFK is being blackmailed right now, for instance.
Oh, really? I
That's
didn't
why,
hear. I didn't know about that.
yeah, that's why he's, well, yeah, most people don't. That's why he changed his tune. You know, when he got into, right before he got into office, he, uh, someone on his staff requested my resume to work for him. And I sent it, and then I did some research and talked to some of my friends, and I found out that he's going to be in a bad place very soon. So I had to, I had to sort of distance myself from that. And it's a shame because I would have loved to work for the last American royalty. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that's just my ego and my wishful belief of what could be or was with JFK and the family, and RFK, Junior RFK. And so these, again, that's something that came to me without me even asking or trying. I have no idea where it came from.
Mm.
And that's because of the resonance that I have with people that I talk to. You can say to me, like I was on an airplane recently and I sat down, I got on the plane. It was around the election. And there was a woman there, an American woman living in Europe. And she looked, and I said, "Excuse me, I'm sitting next to you." And she goes, "Oh my God, a Trump supporter." I was like, I looked at myself. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, "I can tell you're a big white guy, and you're wearing red, white, and blue." Because I had like blue jeans on, a white shirt with a red sweater over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Now I'm a Trump supporter because of that," And I started laughing, and I sat down, and I just listened, and I understood, and I opened up, and I allowed her to really just let go. And as she talked, the aggression got less and less and less. And by the end of the flight, she said, "You're the only conservative that I've ever met that I like."
No, really? Yeah.
And I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I didn't
Interesting.
give an opinion. I didn't say she was right or wrong. I just let her go. I let her release all of that which was in her that she had felt had to be said. And suddenly she had uncovered a part of herself that she probably didn't even know existed anymore. And that was peace. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the time, people don't give a shit about who you are and what you do. When they're talking to you, they want to talk about themselves. So just listen.
Yeah, true.
You want to win any argument? Listen.
That's a good message.
Let them burn themselves out, right? Let them talk and get it out and then empty the cup,
Yeah, it's so
right?
true. It's so
Yeah.
true. I mean, I've really been enjoying listening to you, and that it is a really interesting conversation. And I see from your Instagram posts you're launching a new Patreon channel.
Yes.
What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to leave that, and not only for you, but I'm going to leave that in the show notes for everybody else, because they really get to listen to a different opinion, but a little bit more long form. And I think on Patreon as well, perhaps there is not so much censorship.
No, there's not.
And so I will. It's patreon.com, Steven Eugene Kuhn, but I'll spell it out and everything on the show notes.
Thank you so much.
And Steven, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a super busy person, and I appreciate you taking the time, especially after being in Dubai and then probably you're going off somewhere else tonight.
You are.
Taking the time to tell your story and to, it's fascinating. I was literally dumbstruck. I just been sat here listening, just going, wow. So,
and and literally that's just the very, 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 very tip of the iceberg. And I could tell you stories. It would just blow your mind. I'm talking about stories where I went deep into the darkness. Uh, you know, like I have a titanium eye socket, for instance.
I know.
And
Yeah.
things like this. Just go way deep. You do that another time.
Yeah, look, I'd be so happy, and I'm so stoked to do another one of these. Maybe we can target it from the darkness to light. Because I
would love to.
I also wanted to go a little bit deeper into, when you lost everything and the steps you took to get it all back, and perhaps we can do another one in a few months.
I would love to.
Thank you, Steven.
And we can do that in a couple of weeks if you want, or a couple of days, whatever it is.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate it so much. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you,
care.
Justin. Appreciate it.
Ciao.
Bye.
This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. What a great episode. Out. Ditch the plastic and the toxins. Mother's Earth dishwasher papers are made from non-toxic, eco-certified materials, so they're safer for your home, your health, your family, and the planet. No bulky plastic bottles, no waste, just clean dishes, shipped anywhere in Europe, and 3 times cheaper than those toxic tabs you buy in the supermarkets. Click the link in the show notes to start saving. Simple, secure currency transfers from once-in-a-lifetime property purchase of your dreams to everyday expenses. Currencies Direct helps you save time and money on international transfers. Rated excellent on Trustpilot with over 17,000 positive reviews. Spend like a local with their multi-currency MasterCard. Tap the link in the show notes to get started.
Makes me wanna build a fusion reactor, starting just with the basic switch, connecting poles and energy. Mom says focus on geography, all the things I can learn